In this video, I'm deleting my outdoor entertaining area and making room for a shed and garage expansion. I'll be setting up some new equipment, including a CNC Plasma Table, a Panbrake, press, bandsaw, and more. Once this is finished, I'm going to give you a tour of my garage and tiny shed, which has now morphed into an engineering workshop. First things first, let's start with the garage. It's looking a little tired and dreary and could use a fresh lick of paint to brighten it all up. Cue the time lapse. Geez, that looks a little bit better. Shout out to George and Daniel for the help on this one. They did a marvellous job. So as part of this shed upgrade, I have a huge delivery from Hare & Forbes Machinery House. And I know what you're thinking. Where are you going to put this stuff, Rich? And that's a really, really good question. And the answer lies within my outdoor entertaining area. So let's go have a look at that. This is my backyard. And I've proudly crafted everything you see here from scratch over the past 5 years and turned it into a usable outdoor area where I enjoy kicking back and having a beer. While this space is really nice to have, it's used infrequently, and it's prime real estate for a shed expansion. All I've got to do is remove the table and chairs, put some walls up, and we're good to go. Now that you've seen where this stuff's going to go, let's open it up and I'll give you a bit of a run through of what I have. What I'm unwrapping here is a Panbrake, a bandsaw, an air compressor, and a pneumatic hydraulic press. These tools, in conjunction with the CNC Plasma Table, are a mega upgrade to my shed and will significantly change what I can make at home. Later on in this video, we'll go into all the details of these tools, but for now, watch me struggle to set everything up in this tiny little space. This is a car trailer with a full-size blue carved CNC plasma table on it. The challenge is to get it off without a forklift, as that's how it was loaded on, without sustaining any damage. Let's see how we go. Look at that, superior jacking control. I just want to give a huge shout out to the team down at Hare & Forbes for helping me out with all this new equipment. Yep. So everything we think is in position. We have one big problem. This is really heavy. I'd estimate like, I don't know, 200 kilos or something like that. So what we're going to do, get a jack under there with a piece of timber and hope for the best, really. Yeah. And the next morning, my shed expansion was revealed. Still a lovely place to kick back and have a beer, but now I'd be staring at machinery. All of the new equipment required a bit of setting up. The folks at Hare & Forbes had done a lot of it for me with the Panbrake and the bandsaw, so I could get started with the plasma table. To run the plasma table, you need a good compressor. This is a Forza Tools 120 litre 3300 watt Hush air compressor, so it's pretty quiet, with a free air delivery of 280 litres a minute that I got from Hare & Forbes, which would be powerful enough for my setup. The table also requires the Blue Carve computer, a plasma cutter, e-stop, and a computer of some sort, and I wanted to mount it all so it was nice and neat. Luckily for me, Blue Carve have designed this plasma table with some free space under here, and I'm going to take advantage of it. I had some aluminium offcuts lying around, and the plan was to suspend the compressor and make a shelf to mount everything underneath the table. This way it would be all off the ground and make cleaning and moving the table a lot easier. Dulux Duramax Semi-Gloss Satin Black, not a sponsor, but absolutely could be. I'd opted to bolt everything under the table. Normally the weld is the first thing that I reach for in the shed, but I didn't want to wreck the shiny new powder coat, so bolting seemed like the more sensible option. Now you may be wondering why I'm upgrading this space and not moving into a bigger one. Let me tell you about it quickly. I would love a bigger space, I really would. There are a few options I have, but they would mean taking on more financial pressure by getting a bigger mortgage or renting a factory. I don't really want to be in a position where I have to take on more work to afford a space that I don't have the time to use because I'm working so much to pay for it. And for me personally, the type of work that I really want to be doing is developing my own products and passion projects. And to do this, the thing that I need the most is time. The main reason why I'm upgrading everything at home is to save time. Currently, I have to drive half an hour to go cut something on the plasma table, which actually doesn't sound too bad, but if I was to get a dimension wrong or the bracket needed to be designed differently, I could potentially burn a whole day going back and forth, burning fuel and most importantly, my time. I look up to a lot of engineering entrepreneurs who have started their business from sheds. James Dyson, for example, made 5,127 Cyclone vacuum cleaners over 5 years in his shed before he was able to bring his product to market and turn it into a $22 billion company. And if that isn't inspiration enough, then I don't know what is. They ran lean for as long as possible, and that's what I plan to do as well. Alrighty, so you can see here I've got my new shop. I've got everything installed on it. So now what I need to do is build a computer desk and also clean up the cables because that hurts my eyes. All the cable routing is done now and everything is Velcro down. So you can pull it off if you need to, but otherwise it's not going anywhere. Now that the wiring was done, it was time to move on to the air plumbing. It wasn't just the table getting plumbed, my whole workshop was getting some TLC.
We are using plumbing fittings or plumbing lines to hook up your air lines for your compressor. So we're going to plumb everything from your compressor underneath the plasma. You're going to have lines coming up off this to the press, to the plasma, through your workshop, and to your hose reel as well. Wouldn't read about it, Rich.
You wouldn't read about it. All right, so now you can see compressor set up there, air filter set up there. All right, so you can see the outdoor space now, and one of the big problems I have is water ingress. I don't want rain coming onto all my shiny new machines. So the plan is, like, there are a couple of thoughts here. I could put walls up and make it all clad and nice, but it is an outdoor area and I don't think that's going to really add any value to the house. The other option is to just use clear plastic sort of drop sheets, one here and then two long ones over there, and that will just sort of keep it an outdoor area. It's not too much effort, hopefully. I'm about to do it right now, so we'll watch this space and find out. Welcome to Richo's Renos. Righty, so these clear curtains are all done now and they're anchored to the ground, but I can actually move them up, and I think I will. When I'm doing a lot of cutting, you know, you can get dross splash and that sort of stuff and water, and so I don't ruin them. I'll just roll them up, which is quite good. It's actually quite good for the setup. It was finally alive, and I wanted to put drain holes in the waterbed so I could change the fluid easily when it came time. You don't have to do this and you could suck it out every time, but it seemed like a pretty easy thing to do while it was all empty. I'd spent a few hours putting in the right cut settings and dialing in the cuts. Now that it was up and running, I could use it to cut its own drain holes. Time to plumb the drains. We were using pretty standard plumbing drains and had 3D printed a spacer to ensure the thread had engagement. George, my neighbour, had graciously offered to help, and with all his plumbing expertise, he managed to knock it out pretty quickly. Thanks, Georgie.
You're welcome.
I could now fill up the waterbed, and I was using some borax and algicide to keep the water mold free. So the drains to my plasma are all run now, and I'm gonna put a flex hose or just a hose on the end of that. And yeah, we can empty it into whatever. Let's take a quick break to announce the prize winner. So we were giving away a toolkit last episode, and the winner was Tristan Priest136. Cheers for your comment, and I hope your son enjoys the tools. Get in contact with me and I'll get everything sorted out. The good news is, for anyone who missed out, is I'm giving away another 120 piece Kincrome toolkit. All you have to do is leave a comment on this video about anything relating to it, and my favorite comment wins. Good luck. Now that the drains were complete, it was time to build a proper spot for the computer, which had been sitting on the plasma bed until now. If only I had a way to fabricate some brackets. Go there. Now that I had my dimensions, it was time to draw up the desk mounts in CAD. And in a first for the channel, I'm going to explain how I modelled it. I started with the outside geometry, extruded it by 50mm, which would be the overall width. I then used the convert to sheet metal function, choosing the back and the side edge for where I wanted my bends to go. I then added fillets so I wouldn't cut myself on the piece. Looking pretty good now, time for some holes. On the back flange, I added two 9mm holes, which would mount into the table using a linear sketch pattern and a cut extrude. And on the top flange, I did the same, but there were 3 holes, and they were for the fixing holes to the table. Now for the finishing touches. It's time to add my logo, which I brought in as a vector file. I mucked around with it, scaling it and getting it into the right spot before I could cut extrude it through. Then I added in some little bits to keep the middle of the letters using a boss extrude. Now, normally you hear me bang on about how long things take to model on this channel, and they do, especially something like a suspension system or a complicated full car assembly. Something like this though is relatively simple and a great one to get started on. This actually took me 6 minutes to model, 2 minutes to get my shape in sheet metal, and then 4 minutes to muck around with the logo. And for anyone who's messed around with logos in CAD before, you'll understand that it's never that straightforward. Okay, so this is done. Now we're ready to cut it out on the plasma table. This is like really the first cut that the plasma has done. I did some circles yesterday just to practice for the drain hole, and they came out really clean, to be honest. Let me show you how easy this thing is to use. Basically, just put the sheet on. I've got a heap of scrap material. Line it up. I generally do that by eye. Just, it's actually not a good edge to line it up on. So, once my files are nested, I use a function on the MyPlas software which outlines the perimeter of the cutting area and allows me to make sure that my material is big enough. Excitingly, it's time to cut the first piece now. Unfortunately, I had the settings for the lead-ins wrong on this one, and it was piercing on the outside of the holes instead of the inside. It looks pretty bad, so I'll have to cut this piece again. I changed the lead-in settings and it was now piercing on the inside of the waste material and cutting brilliantly. Once that was done, I cut the other bracket, and I could use the manual guillotine function to chop off the waste material from the part of the sheet that I wanted to keep. At this point, you may be wondering how will this go with my neighbours and all the noise, and that's a fair question. I just want to say that I get along really well with my neighbours, and a setup like this makes less noise than an angle grinder, and I'm respectful. I'll only cut during business hours. One of my neighbours actually sent me this meme. I think he's priming me up to do some cut jobs for him, which of course I'll do. Love thy neighbour, as they say. I don't plan on doing cut jobs for other people. While I could use this machine to make money, I have to be selective of where I focus my energy. It really is for doing my own projects and prototyping. I may only run it 2 to 3 times a week for 10 minutes a time, and it doesn't sound like it's going to get a lot of use, but that's only for now, and the circumstances may change and we may move into a bigger facility and have more people using it in the future. Looking at the pieces now, and you can see the backside, it's very, very clean. Like, this is out of the box, not fiddling with any settings, and just look, there's barely any dross along these edges. So all I have to do, run a deburr around really quickly. Like, you can see some bits with a little bit extra dross build up, But honestly, like, pretty amazing out of the box. And yeah, just reflecting on it. So last time I got this logo cut about this size, I actually deleted the built and the tested because the laser couldn't do it. You know, it's just too much heat concentrated in such a small area in such a quick time, and yeah, it kept blowing through as well. They say if it's cutting well, you should just be able to knock the dross off with another bit of, you know, alley or steel or something like that, and you can do that. But honestly, I find just one of these stripper discs is better. I just think it's quicker, like you just run over it once. It's not too abrasive, it doesn't take off too much. Onto the Panbrake now to get all the folds in there. Luckily, it has removable teeth, so I could pull out one of those middle teeth, so that means that I could do all my folding properly. This is a $40 project panel from Bunnings, which I was going to use for the desktop, and the brackets were made out of spare 3mm aluminium that I had lying around. The table is set up now with the plumbing and the electrical. It's on wheels, so it can move a little bit. Obviously, it's limited by this umbilical here. But if I needed to move to a different garage or shed, it'd be very easy. Everything's sort of contained in the table. Let's start talking through some of these machines. So this is a Blue Carve Spark CNC Plasma Table. Now, this is a full sheet. These do come in a range of different sizes. They start at $770, I believe, and there's a couple of different increments up until you get full sheet, and there's actually bigger than this as well for the next sort of size up. I've had one of these machines for the last 3 years, and Laurie and I co-own one, and it's at LCS, and it's awesome. That's why I've got another one. I need to look no further. These are the best bang for buck CNC plasmas on the market. You just can't get anywhere close to them. So just to give you an idea of this setup, I believe that everything here, minus the plasma cutter, so table, waterbed, and the gantry and the controller is around $8,000. And then I've lashed out and I bought a pretty reasonable plasma cutter. This is a Thermocut 45 HD single phase. We switched to Thermocut on my other table a number of years ago and wouldn't really bother looking at anything else. These are absolutely fantastic value for money, and they pack some punch. That is good for cutting up to like 25mm, and I generally don't sort of cut those sort of thicknesses at home. I will only really be doing 3, 4, 5, and 6 at home. Maybe one day, depending on what we're developing, you know, I might cut 25mm. So I've spent a little bit more money on the plasma cutter. I think a unit like that is around the $3,800 mark. So this is essentially a 12 grand setup. And then I've added a computer. Now this computer is really basic. It can run CAD software, but it is kind of the bottom of the barrel. And it's really just a purely dedicated plasma computer. And I've done that because we've used the one at LCS a heap. And basically whenever you're cutting, you've got dirty hands and you're moving material as well. And I do think having a dedicated plasma computer is a great idea, something that you don't really care about. I mean, I have an expensive laptop, and putting that into the table every time and cutting with dirty, wet, waterbed on your hands and metal, I do think that you'd probably damage your laptop, which would save you the cost of having a dedicated computer. But just to give you an idea, you could get something like this off Facebook Marketplace for $200. The plasma software itself is really not that demanding in terms of its requirements for a computer. So pretty cheap just to have a dedicated one on your plasma table. Now, if you wanted to do proper CAD and stuff like that, I'd recommend getting the north of $1,000 computers. And we're gonna go actually into my computing setup in this video as well, because I do get asked about what computers I run quite frequently. Table for this setup, like this was a project panel from Bunnings, it was $40. And then the aluminium I had lying around, I don't know, you could put a material value of $40 on that. Also, you've got to add in the air compressor cost to that. So a unit like I got is around the $1,500 mark, and there are a bunch of air compressors out there. I've also got an air filter underneath it, which was like $150. Overall, including the compressor and the filter, you're at about 14K for this setup. Now, I think that's really reasonable for what you're getting. This machine will absolutely change your life. Now, as I said, if you just want to get into this and you want a smaller bed, you can really start at the bottom, and some of those machines you can get for like, you know, 3-4 grand to entry, and you can get worse plasma cutters as well. I have definitely spec'd up, you know, quite a good one, and I've tried to future-proof this setup for as long as I can. The poor man pays twice, remember that one, it's a really good one. Some of the stuff we've been able to build on this table over the last few years is actually unreal, and it has changed my life in regards to quickly prototyping products. Stuff for the bike racks and the moto racks, I'm able to just churn out iteration and iteration. I mean, we've cut the dirt bike canopy, I've cut canopies, cut a 4-link suspension on it, I've cut a heap of brackets for cars. If you love working in your shed and you love working on your projects, whether that be cars or motorbikes or whatever it may be, and you want to take your fabrication to the next level, you need a CNC plasma table. Doing stuff on the laser is great, and I've done that before for little brackets and one-offs. But for one-off pieces, you just cannot beat something like this in your yard. It is so quick to use and turn around parts, and I highly, highly recommend one. When you're comparing this setup to more expensive ones on the market, you know, you instantly start looking at like 20, 30 grand, and I just could never justify it. I think, you know, maybe if you're doing more production run stuff for heavy industry, maybe that's when you start looking at an industrial plasma, but you know, for one-off brackets, for small business, for prototyping, this is the machine for you. You could do production stuff on this as well. There's no reason why you can't. Where I built my canopy with Justin from Absolut Custom Fabrication, he was building canopies on this machine, and he just let it cut for hours on end. What I'll be using it for is predominantly prototyping and just my own projects. Another thing with this plasma table as well is it's kind of like an open source plasma table. It's not Blue Car's proprietary software, it's actually a third-party software. And what that means is you can kind of spec this the way you want. You could also spec this machine out with like a 100 amp cutter, which could cut up to 50 mil in thickness. That's when the bed strength becomes an issue. So these beds, as they come from Blue Carve, they're designed for 12 mil sheet, which is actually, you know, really, really thick stuff. But if you were doing more of an industrial application, maybe you'd need to look at building your own bed. So that's what we've done at LCS. We built a heavy duty bed ourselves. But in the 4 years that we've had that table, it's very, very rare that we have a sheet thicker than 12 mil on the table anyway. So you've just got to have a really good think about what you're cutting. That LCS table, the way it was built with all the steel leg, no doubt you could put a sheet of 25 mil on that. But logistically even, like, you need overhead gantries and all of that sort of stuff. So you just got to have a good think about exactly what your needs are. This machine, extremely customizable. The only other thing that I may consider for this machine is an air dryer, and they're about $1,500 depending on which one you get. It really does depend on what you're cutting. If you're cutting really big pieces and your machine's on for a long time, then an air dryer is absolutely going to benefit you. For small brackets and stuff, you know, it is, but mine's cutting pretty good already, so might be able to save myself $1,500. I have used and owned one of these for the past 3 years, and I think it is absolutely awesome. It's designed here, manufactured here. I can't speak more highly of it. Save yourself, you know, 8 to potentially 20 grand and get one of these as opposed to one of the more expensive ones. Huge shout out to Adam and the team from Blue Carve who have helped me out with this and, you know, helped out with the setup and everything. They're just absolutely awesome to deal with. I cannot speak more highly of them. So what we have here is a 45 ton hydraulic pneumatic press from Hare & Forbes, and I've actually used this exact one at LCS for the past 3-4 years, and it is an absolutely awesome unit. What this press allows me to do is stuff like pressing bushes and bearings, but then probably more importantly for me and the sort of stuff that I do is actually fold sheet metal. This is a press brake attachment for the press, and it allows you to fold sheet metal. Now, I've been using this for a number of years at LCS as well, and we have made so much stuff on it. The main limitation of this compared to a real press brake is that it's really hard to hang, you know, a return over the edge, so you can't necessarily fold everything. Essentially, the foot pedal is going to control the pneumatic cylinder, and this is going to absolutely change what I can and can't do in my backyard. a lot of sheet metal projects I'll be able to do here now. And yeah, I'd love a CNC press brake, and that might be, you know, when I move into a bigger space, that might be a bit more feasible. But realistically, you're dropping, you know, another 20K on one of them as well. And for the amount that I actually use it, which is probably, you know, 5-6 times a year, it is harder to justify than something like this, which is a much cheaper setup, and you know, it is multifunctional. I've got a new bandsaw from Hare & Forbes. Now this is the EB-260. Laurie at LCS has one of these, so I've also been using one of these for the past 3 to 4 years, and it is an awesome unit. Honestly, it's a little bit of overkill for what I actually need in the shed at the moment, but these cut straight and you can adjust them quite easily. So if you just pull this lever to unlock it, there's an angle dial down here, and you can, you know, adjust what angle you're cutting on, which is awesome for doing miters and for doing tube work and that sort of stuff. And it's got coolant that runs through it. So my past bandsaw that I had here was tiny and it didn't cut straight at all. So this is a massive, massive upgrade for me. And this is a bandsaw that I'm going to keep for life. I don't see myself needing anything bigger in the future. But again, this has really, really changed what I can do at home now. It's going to make things like doing pipe work a lot easier. So we've got a few projects on the go where we have to do a lot of pipe work. So we've got George's build, and there's a lot of plumbing on that. And getting a bandsaw that cuts on angles is a massive, massive deal to do plumbing. I also do a lot of RHS work as well for the bike racks, and that's where this is going to come in really, really handy. What we have here is a Panbrake from Hare & Forbes. So this is the PB420. Now there is one above this as well, and I think from what I understand, the only difference is that it's got longer teeth. A lot of the stuff that I do, it doesn't really matter, so I've opted for a slightly cheaper option, but honestly, this is exactly what I need at home. This has got teeth that you can pull out and adjust as need be. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a long time, we've been using a big Panbrake. A lot of the time, I don't need to do long folds. Like even to do a radiator shroud or a canopy fit out, I think I could do most of it on here. This is good for about 2mm steel, and I've done 3mm alley on it, as you saw in this video. I'm not sure whether it's supposed to or not, but it does. And it is an absolutely awesome unit for home. I think this is sort of probably the bare minimum that I'd be looking at if you were going to invest in a Panbrake. In conjunction with the V-block die that I've got on the press and the plasma table, I can really do 90% of the sheet metal that I need to at home now, which is just unreal. It just means so much less mucking around for me, so much less driving, and I can just come and bang out prototypes really, really quickly.
So that just about covers the new outside section. Let's go have a look at the inside now.
Looking over to one side of the shed, and this is bare. This is where I put project cars. Now, I've only got space for one project car at a time. George's car was actually living in here. For those of you who have been following along at the channel, it's a pretty gnarly custom FJ45 with a Barra 8-speed triangulated 4-link, not chassis, but it's now in storage. And there's another project car which is sitting outside that garage, which I'm not going to show you in this. It's a really cool Kincrome project that I'm working on with some of the other content creators, and that's all going to be revealed in the next few months. Finally, I've got an air hose reel, so I can pump up car tires and bike tires now. So in this corner of the shed, I've just got some more storage with some storage tubs. I've just got them all labeled like moto tie downs, car wash, tow hitches, that sort of stuff. This is my motorbike rack hitch testing jig, and you may have seen that on the channel before. Now the next video that comes out on the channel will be about testing the motorbike hitch carrier. So make sure you hit subscribe if you're interested in that. I've got a portable Kincrome table over here, and I find this really handy when you're doing jobs on the car and you just want to put parts or tools or something like that. A new addition for me are these strip heaters. So they're 15 amperes. We can draw a heap of power in this shed if you haven't noticed. It does get a little bit cold in Melbourne, so they're great. They're like 80 bucks off Kogan or something like that. And over here is the sound system. So this is the EcoX gear. I have taken it on a trip with me, and it just bolts onto the back of my tray. It's completely weatherproof. It's a really, really good Bluetooth speaker. I've actually 3D printed a mount for my heater remote and my soundbar remote. Now this soundbar is fully customizable with a neon, so you can just hit different colors and it will stay solid or whatever. It's pretty cool. All we have here in this corner of the garage are some bike racks. Now, for those of you who have been following along on my channel, you know that we developed and released this as a commercial product late last year. And I've basically got every variant in my shed, just in case we need to try them out on different cars. So if you're in the market for a bike rack, check out www.doumacarriersystems.com.au. These are designed and manufactured in Australia, and we're really, really proud of them. While we're doing a shed tour, it's probably a good time to just touch on the bikes that I ride. These aren't projects, they're actual things that I ride. So let's start with my dirt bike, the YZ250X. This is a 2021. Doesn't really matter, they haven't changed since 05. Now, why I ride this bike is because of the suspension. It's got KYB and it just feels amazing. I've ridden a heap of other dirt bikes like KTMs and Huskies, and the suspension just isn't as good out of the box, and you've got to spend an extra couple of grand to get your chassis performing something like this. Some of the disadvantages of this bike is that it doesn't have an electric start and it doesn't have a hydro clutch. To be honest, the cable clutch on this bike is really good. You can get hydraulic clutch upgrades, but I've never felt the need to. And same with the electric start, you can pay about 1,500 bucks for an aftermarket electric start kit, but personally, I think having a Kickstarter means that you're going to stall it less, and it teaches you to be a better rider. As far as the engine goes, I've never been in a situation where I'm like, damn, I wish I had more power. This thing's awesome, and it does lug. It's the X model, so it's got a different pipe, and I think it's got a different head on it in comparison to the motocross version, and it's just an absolutely awesome bike. I've been on one of these for like maybe the last 7 years, and I do not see myself switching to one of the other brands anytime soon. Yamaha Australia, not a sponsor, but absolutely could be. I love it. Mountain bikes, I run the Commencal Absolut Hardtail. Now, I still ride the indoor skate park. I try to go like once every 2 weeks, and I find that keeps me really sharp on the bike. So this has just got Pike DJs, a set of BMX cranks on it. It's got a Hope hubs, and it is a ripper bike. Like, I just absolutely love it. It's so much fun. And yeah, riding ramps and riding jumps keeps me sharp on two wheels. So I try and do it, reasonably regularly. Mountain bike wise, I've got a Commencal Clash now. I built this up myself. I didn't really like any of the available specs at the time. So Fox 38s, I've got an air shock. I find the air shock's a bit more progressive through big jumps, and that's what I really like doing. Yeah, I've set up the cables so it runs through the steerer so I can do bar spins and tail whips. It's 170mm, 160mm, and it is really a free ride bike, but I absolutely love it to death. Alrighty, so this is my underhouse storage. Now, when I first got this house, I was on my hands and knees for maybe like a month. I was just digging it out. The dirt used to come up to here. I dug all this extra out, I paved it, I put the shelves in, and this is my storage. So what it allows me to do is really keep the majority of the stuff out of the garage. I keep my mountain bikes here, I keep my spare dirt bike for my test rig here, and I keep a bunch of car parts and all that sort of stuff. So that's where I keep all my camping gear. Okay, so you've seen my garage now. Let's go into my tiny little workshop. So there's a full video on this on my channel. I think I'm just gonna cover it quickly on this one. If you wanna see it in more detail, go have another look at the other videos. I've got a jig/welding table that I built myself. I've got Unimig MIG, I've got a Unimig AC/DC TIG, so that comes in handy. That's been really good actually, some of the best bang for buck. I use the big bottles, they're the best value for money. I think they're about 200 bucks a refill from Speed Gas. On the back wall, I have a heap of grinding and cutting consumables and just some misc stuff. And then over here, I've got a drill press. I've got a bench grinder/linisher that's probably due for an upgrade, so is the drill press. And then I've got an awesome Dawn vise bolted here, which comes in very, very handy. Looking the other way now, this is the piece de resistance, really the heart of everything that happens here, the Kincrome toolbox. So this is one of their top level ones, and it's got this nice hutch on the top. And basically I keep all my power tools in there. They're kind of a new addition the last 18 months. Every drawer is full of tools, and it has its own place for the tools. So this is one of the biggest and best upgrades I did to the shed. Thank you so much to Kincrome for the ongoing support. I really, really appreciate it. And geez, we have some fun together. What I've done to this toolbox in the last few months is hang up all my power tools and get them all organized. Really happy with them. So these are organizers off Temu. They're like, I don't know, $40 each or something like that. Feels really neat because it was an absolute clutter and mess before. Keep my wireless charging stuff on this side as well. So all my head torches and torches are just constantly on charge. Something else that I keep up here is all my power tool accessories, which I've started using so much. Like everyone is just, full of great bits. So instead of wrecking my actual hand tools and adapting them to my power tools, which is what I had been doing, I've just started using these, and I think everyone's happy as a result. 3D printers, kind of a new addition. This is a Bamboo Labs X1C. So not a really great spot for it on the end of the bench, considering I do a lot of fabrication in here. I don't really have a good spot for it though, and I do cover it with sheets. Very considerate of this machine. Now, these are about 2200 with the AMS on the top, so that's the feed system if you want to print with different materials. And I've been actually offered different printers from other companies, and this is the one I bought with my own money. No affiliation with them whatsoever. I think this is one of the best units you can buy for the money. I don't think there's a heap of difference between the P1S and the X1C, but this was marketed more as, you know, doing engineering, and that's what we do on the channel. So I did spend the money on this one. I think you can upgrade the P1S nozzle, but the AI camera is better on this one. So this is awesome. Now, when I first started, you know, making stuff, the 3D printers were really, really rudimentary. You had to do the bed leveling, and basically every second print failed. This hasn't had a failed print yet, and we're printing with PLA, but we're also printing with ASA a lot, and it is just so good. So if you're going to buy a 3D printer, buy one with an enclosed bed, and if you don't, you'll regret it because the print's stuff up. Now, under the benches, I have more storage, more tools. In hindsight, I really should have closed it all in, but I didn't, and I regret it every day. One day. Okay, over here, I have my bolt storage and misc storage. So when you're setting up a shed, really important, just go buy all of the bolts you think you'll need and you won't regret it. Down here, I've hung up a lot of my measuring stuff and straight edges and that sort of stuff. So it looks pretty good. I've got my actually Kincrome blower back there as well, just all hung up on hooks. Step into my office and you may notice that I've got a lot of screens, and that's because I run two computers. So I run a Mac as basically like a daily and everything computer. It's just so good for not crashing and not letting me down and video editing. And then I run a Windows engineering computer over here. I run both Windows and Mac for maybe the last decade, and once you go Mac, you never go back. These things are just absolute workhorses. So to give you an example, when I used to render videos, like a 4K 30-minute video using an i7 chip, it might have taken 12 hours, but using Apple Silicon, so this is an M1 Max, which is like maybe 5 years old, it can do it in 12 minutes. Like, it is just astounding what a Mac can do in comparison to Windows. Now, to run proper CAD software on a Mac, you actually need to run Parallels, and I find it quite glitchy and I just don't like it. So that's why this computer has come into the equation. Now, this is just a dedicated CAD and engineering computer, and it's an absolute ripper. I think Windows are okay as long as you don't ask too much from them. And if you've only got 1 or 2 programs on it, then it can't be asking too much. If you're looking to run CAD on your computers, you need to be looking for something with a good graphics card and plenty of RAM. So that's what this is. You can get a pretty reasonable CAD desktop for about $1,000. Then spend maybe something more like $3 to $4,000 if you want performance on those bigger and larger assemblies. And that's sort of what I have here. What I want to note here is that I run a Mac laptop and I run one single cable to a dock which charges it and powers all of these screens as well as all these USB accessories. So it's basically the best of both worlds having a setup like this. Like, literally all you have to do is, you know, plug this cable in, one single cable, and then you have a desktop. You can even set it up with a trackpad so it replicates a laptop. I think that these things with Apple Silicon, you just can't go past it for a computer.
That's it for my garage turned engineering workshop tour. If you want to see me put these machines to use, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps grow the channel more than you know. Next video on the channel is the second installment of the motorbike rack, which I'm really looking forward to releasing. Cheers for watching.